Hello, everyone, and welcome to another awesome interview with one of our authors from Amazonas. So today we're going to be chatting with Andrew Bogott, and he wrote an article in issue 10.5, the current Gudgeons and Gopis one, this guy, if you happen to have it with you, that is all about importing aquarium livestock. So Andrew, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Hello.
All right, cool. So tell us a little bit about you. How did you get into the aquarium trade and what do you like about it?
So I'm Andrew. I live in Minneapolis. I'm strictly a hobbyist. I've sold some fish and shrimp on Aquabid, but never enough to pay for the the effort in producing that.
Of course not.
Yeah, and I've kept fish for maybe 10 or 12 years or something like that. I kept them as a kid as well, but then there was a long interval in between.
Sure.
And I'm quite active in the Minnesota Aquarium Society breeding program. So I breed a lot of species. And I don't really have an area of specialty. I did keep many varieties of shrimp back when that was unusual. Mm-hmm. More interested in different species of wild shrimp rather than in the specific selective breeding of mm-hmm. of Caridianus. And I don't keep very many shrimp now, as you know, a few species have become very widely available and the importers have mostly stopped importing wild species. So I've sort of tuned out a little bit from the fancy ones, but
sure.
I'm still interested in them. Yeah. Yeah, and the importation thing is pretty arbitrary. I mean, because Minneapolis is bitterly cold in the winter and because mm-hmm. I have a job that lets me work from anywhere, when there's not a pandemic underway, I tend to live elsewhere in the wintertime.
Smart call.
And not all, but many of recent winters have been in Southeast Asia, in Singapore and Malaysia.
Nice.
And as you can imagine, there are many fish farms and many hobbyists and many interesting things going on there that are not necessarily the same as here. And mm-hmm. And so I always see things through shop windows or uh-huh. in aquarium stores or whatever and think, oh, it'd be great if I could take those home, but it sure is a long way and a long trip. Mm-hmm. And boy, this is a long time ago now. It must be maybe 12 years ago. I went to an all shrimp store called CRS Haven in Singapore and had them box up maybe 8 or 10 species of different wild caught shrimp that were being imported then.
Yeah.
And packed them all in a box and wrote, caution live fish on the outside of the box and went to the plane to fly home. And I had talked to Fish and Wildlife, I talked to the airline and so on and so forth, but then everybody's stories changed just as soon as I was in line, and I had to cancel my flight and go back and return all these different shrimp to everybody. And so then years later, I was like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to do this because I'm sure it's possible, and I'm still burned from getting turned away the last time. So I was kind of on a mission just to convince myself that it could be done.
That's funny because I've always been, I probably have never put enough thought into it, but I've traveled enough and always see fish and think, could I get them home? Uh-huh. I don't know. And I guess I just assumed because of the liquid restrictions that would be a solid no and it would just be impossible. And then I thought, oh God, you can't check them. That would be a disaster. And what if a bag pops? And there's so many things that could go wrong in the whole bag check scenario. So I never suspected that it would actually be doable to take them on the plane with me. So I was pretty surprised, pleasantly surprised by your article.
Yeah, and to my surprise, in the US, as long as you're not traveling from Hawaii,
right,
it's allowed. It's explicitly allowed. You're specifically allowed to carry on fish in a bag, and the baggage inspectors are supposed to hold it up and look and confirm. I guess the theory is that if there's a living fish in the water, that it's probably not whatever bomb precursors they're looking for. So.
Right. Yeah, that probably wouldn't be too conducive to life.
So the international travel was a real headache, and I don't know for sure that I would do it again. But that turns out, flying something home from California or Florida or whatever, it's completely straightforward. So that's
amazing.
It's great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
And good job to the TSA to think of that and actually write a line into their policies about it.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised about that, honestly, that
Yeah,
they thought that one
me
through.
too. Me too.
But yes, props to them for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, within the US, if you're traveling, excluding Hawaii, are there any pitfalls people should watch out for? Anything that you really need to be aware of when you're transporting live fish via plane?
I haven't done it very many times, and the reason
Hmm.
that I'm saying about Hawaii is because there are state laws about
Yeah,
invasive species, and I think
right.
every state has those.
Hmm.
I don't know that I don't think that there are Minnesota um, DNR officials at the airport checking luggage, but
Right.
in theory, there are certainly things that it wouldn't be allowed to bring
Sure.
in.
Yeah.
And the reason I say Hawaii is that I think at Hawaii there are, in fact, inspectors that are
Hmm.
checking, probably going other direction.
Yeah.
Um, but no, like I said, it worked the couple
Hmm.
times that I did it without a lot of headache.
Yeah.
I did have a printout of the policy in my pocket to wave at them in case I got a baggage inspector who
Sure.
thought that it wasn't allowed.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it mostly seemed fine. I don't
That's good.
recall if there's a limit. I had just, I think, one bag or two bags when
Uh-huh.
I did it, 2 bags of fish. So I don't know that it would be, I wouldn't want to have a commercial
Yeah.
operation
Wouldn't try that.
currying them,
No.
but no, it was fine. Yeah.
That's great.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, so then moving on to international, I'm sure
Yeah.
I know your example in the story is from Singapore, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, tell us about that. Walk us through that process a little bit.
Yeah. Well, so of course there are two sides to it, right? There's export
Mm,
and import both.
hmm.
And because Singapore is kind of positioned as a free trade place,
Hmm.
the export angle is quite easy. There is licensing for commercial export of fish, and I mean obviously there are fish farms in Singapore.
Sure.
They also do a lot of transshipping from Thailand and Malaysia to
Yes.
the rest of the world. That requires licensing, but there's also a personal allowance, which is
Hmm.
pretty big for freshwater things. I don't remember what it was, but it was maybe 30 fish or 50 fish or something.
It's pretty
It seemed
substantial.
reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So getting in my case, it was shrimp. Getting the shrimp out was really not an issue.
Yes.
Um, the only catch getting out was that even though the US TSA has the rule that says you can carry bags of fish onto the airplane, the Singapore baggage laws don't say that.
Hmm.
So I had to pack the shrimp in many tiny little 100 milliliter containers
Right.
as though I just had a wide variety of shampoos. And then it was like, well, they're under the liquid limit, so it should be allowed. And
Exactly.
I don't I I'm pretty sure I was obeying the spirit of the law. Certainly nobody cared,
Right.
so that was fine.
That is pretty funny. Imagining
Yeah,
all these shrimp in little shampoo
yeah,
bottles.
yeah. And it wouldn't have worked. Yeah, I know with discus it would have been a non-starter. So I think
Oh
so.
yeah, no, no, that would not work.
But also I think many countries seem to sort of standardize on the US TSA rules. So
Sure.
I think that other countries have the fish in a bag rule. I think it's just that
Hmm.
Singapore doesn't, but I don't know for sure because
Right.
I haven't called every different country's TSA rules.
And that would be quite the project.
Yeah. And then once you're on the plane en route, then the complication is getting through customs
Hmm.
and fish and wildlife on this
Yeah.
end. And again, the fish and wildlife people are surprisingly positive about the whole idea. Like they
Huh.
definitely want to know
Sure.
that it's happening.
Right.
And I think I did pay a small fee to, I don't know. Again, I don't have the article in front of me.
Yeah.
I think I paid a small fee to file
Yeah.
some paperwork.
Not bad.
Um, as long as you're passing through an airport that has fish and wildlife people stationed at it, which
Sure.
is not my airport, but is West Coast airports where I was
Hmm.
changing planes.
Hmm.
Um, they seemed to think it was fine. They're like, oh yeah, you should do
Nice.
it. That sounds great. We'll meet you. They answered all my questions. They were great.
Wow.
So it was fine. Um, I wouldn't recommend doing it without checking ahead of time because
Hmm.
there are forms to fill out,
Yeah.
and just for my blood pressure, like knowing that I had a letter from somebody saying this is cool,
Right.
showed anybody who I ran into on the way really made a huge difference. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, the real takeaway that surprised me was how supportive everybody was. Like the DSA people were supportive.
Wow.
The Fish and Wildlife people were supportive. Um, I think in theory, agriculture also has a stake because if it was obviously if it was a cow or a pig, they would have a steak, and because it's
Right.
technically livestock.
Correct. Yeah.
But then they have a short list, and so as soon as it's not on that list, then they said, yeah, we don't care, just talk to Fish and Wildlife. So so yeah, I mean, I don't know, maybe their attitude will change if 1,000 people call them a day wanting to get shepherd
Right.
in food. But,
That might
for
be
me,
different.
they were really helpful, and it was fine.
Huh.
The only real wrinkle that I had with the shrimp was that I changed planes at the what they call a port of entry, where the Fish and Wildlife people were, but it was, I don't know, it was at night or on a Sunday or something, or maybe it was maybe on a holiday, and so they weren't actually there. And it wasn't clear, like they were like, at our option, we might drive in and look and bill you for the time. But then they didn't. So then it was up to the customs people, and the customs people were kind of baffled. And they looked at my paperwork, and they sort of walked around, and a bunch of people looked at the paperwork, and they went, oh, it
looks official.
It was okay. And then they sent me through. So it was a little bit of a wait, because they were surprised.
Right.
And I think if it had been on a Tuesday, there would have been nothing to it.
Right. That is definitely encouraging.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So I might, if travel ever happens again, I would maybe try it again if I were sufficiently compelled.
Yeah.
The shrimp that I brought back turn out not to be the species of shrimp that I was really coveting when I was there. They're sold under the same trade name, but I think that they were called Malayan shrimp, and I think it's just whatever got scooped from a river in Malaysia that day.
So technically, yes, they're Malayan shrimp.
Yes. And so I don't know. I mean, I guess I would have another go if I found something that was obviously the species that I'm looking for.
Sure.
But yeah. Possible.
All right.
Possible, and involved a lot of emailing, but not otherwise a huge deal.
Sure. Yeah. So this definitely seems like the sort of thing where if you do your homework on the front end, it should be okay. Just make sure that you've checked the requirements of all of the countries you're going to be flying through. Make sure you've got your paperwork in order.
And I'd be really interested in either following up or somebody following up and seeing about Germany, right? Because Germany is where like a lot of the really interesting cichlid species and such are landing in Germany first, and then arriving at the US not at all, or by unspecified methods. And so it would be interesting to see if it's as easy to export from Germany as it is.
I wonder about that.
That would come up a lot, I think.
Yeah, I would think so too.
Yeah, and my work certainly sends me to Germany a lot more than it sends me to Singapore. So,
well, you might have to let us know how it goes. I don't know. Give it a try. So the shrimp, of course, were a big thing in Singapore. Have there ever been any other fish or any other inverts that you've seen in your travels that you really felt compelled to try to take home with you?
I've definitely seen things overseas that I hadn't seen in the US, but then they show up a few years later in the US. Like there seems to be kind of a lag.
Definitely.
And I know I've heard that even somebody in the Aquarium Society who was on a collecting trip in Peru recently said that the best picks all first go to Japan and Hong Kong.
Yep.
And then
top price.
And then when they get bored with the species, then they land in the US, right?
Right. So,
the only thing that I really covet, which I name checked in the article, I think, is I really like macropotus, different like paradise fish and roundtail paradise fish and such. And there are a couple species of macropotus that Hong Kongensis and maybe another kind that I've seen and would sort of like to bring home if I could find a pair, but usually you only see males in shops.
Sure.
They'd probably be pretty easy. They're easy to ship, right? Because they're air breathers and they
should be simple.
Care about temperature, so it seems possible. But but everything would have to align perfectly.
Of course.
And also, I don't think I could put a paradise fish in a little 100 milliliter shampoo bottle.
I don't think so.
I mean, I guess if I had a long enough stay, I could get a pair, spawn them, and then bring the fry home and shampoo them.
Yeah, that would be a real commitment.
It'd be a whole big thing.
That's for sure. I'm sorry, I had to breed them just so I could take them home. That's how this went. Funny.
Well, and I guess the other thing, this is shrimp again, but there are still, new species of shrimp coming out of Sulawesi, and they almost never survive the trip over to the US, right? So the opportunity to if I had a chance, to do that myself and know that I was doing it carefully and right,
Yeah.
that would probably motivate me as well.
Yeah,
I
for
don't
sure.
remember, I don't remember seeing a lot in Asian shops besides, I can't remember the species name, but the cardinal shrimp, which seem
Right.
available here already. So
Yeah, everyone's got those at this point, I guess. But
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Huh. Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. And it actually being a better option to take them yourself, because you at least you know what they're being subjected to, you know.
Yeah, well,
So
and then
that's
spend whatever the
interesting.
24 hours
Yeah.
in the bottle rather than the weeks that it takes if they're
Exactly.
usually shipped. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that could take a really long time. Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
Well, cool. So yeah, this is, in case, just for a reminder to everyone, it is in this issue of Amazonas, which is our, oh, it disappears. This is Gudgeons and Gobies, which is 10.5. And yeah, it's a pretty great spread. Lots of explanations and instructions about how to do this yourself if you're really interested in getting fish back from other places, even US or outside of. So yeah, that's great information, and thanks for testing it out.
Yeah.
It's very good.
So that Amazonas article has
Yeah.
a Rhinogobius article in it. I'm sorry, the issue has a Rhinogobius article in
It
it.
does.
And that's one of the kinds of fish that I've been keeping the most of recently. So I can give you a little Fishroom tour, and you can see some of my gobies down there, which are vaguely on topic for the magazine article.
Sounds perfect. So yes, we're going to do that, and we're going to go check out your fish room. Thanks.
Okay, cool.
Let's see.
Yeah, so I have a row of these 15-gallon tanks, most of which have Rhinogobius in them.
Fantastic.
You can see through the glare.
There's
a Zhui there.
Oh.
They're the prettiest and usually the boldest that I have, but today they decided to be retiring. There's maybe 4 or 5 males in here. And I've gotten
neat.
a couple of good spawns from them, and I'm trying to get another spawn now, but they're the toughest as well as the prettiest, so they're reluctant.
Interesting. So what makes them particularly tough with spawning?
So most of the species that I've kept, their eggs hatch just into little gobies that are just ready to go, and I'll just eat whatever. The Zhui, they lay big eggs, but I've never seen them. I'm hesitating because there's a weird thing about Rhinogobius where the eggs seem to just kind of hatch at different times. Like here, let me show you. These guys are
oh, hello.
Filamentosus.
Sure. Yep.
Rhinogobius, and their eggs are very big, and they hatch over the course of about a week, and some of them hatch into wrigglers, and then a while later, the later ones hatch into wrigglers with smaller yolk sacs, and then finally some eggs just hatch into gobies. So and eventually they all catch up.
Yeah.
But the Zhui, basically everybody that I've talked to, and mine as well, their eggs hatch really early into wrigglers, and the wrigglers are just really bad at taking care of themselves, so they tend to get fungused or otherwise die before they develop far enough to eat.
Dang.
The ones that I raised, actually, this one, when it was a fry, I actually put in an egg tumbler, like for a Malawi cichlid.
Sure.
And tumbled their eggs for maybe like 4 or 5 days until they developed finally. And that's obviously nothing, that doesn't in any way resemble what they do in the cave with their parents, but that was the only way that I could keep the fry alive.
That's really interesting.
Wow. And then next door here, these are delicatus.
Oh, lovely.
And these guys, so you can all see these little caves. So pretty much all the Rhinogobius seem to like to spawn in these flat little caves.
Cool.
And then they dig them out, they lay their eggs on the roof of the cave, and then they close up the door. So I don't think I have anybody sitting on eggs right now, so you can't see the closed door, only open doors.
Interesting.
So the delicatus eggs hatch into they hatch into pelagic fry. So they hatch into fry that swim around for a couple weeks.
Right.
And then after a few weeks, then their swim bladders shrink, and then they sink, and then they act like gobies after that.
So interesting.
And that's different from these guys who are rubro maculatus.
Okay.
And they hatch directly into just little gobies. And then there's yet another one. These, which are you able to see them at all? These
yes.
really
Actually, not too badly. Yeah.
So these are an unnamed species. There may be Formosanus or a relative
Oh,
Formosanus. They're one of these gobies that live in coastal areas.
okay,
And so their fry hatch into plankton that get washed out into salt water.
right,
So they're not even really pelagic. They're just kind of helpless floaters for a
right.
while.
Yep, part of the plankton. Huh.
So I guess I didn't really realize that, but I have the whole array of reproductive strategies here.
You really do.
Um,
Yeah, that's pretty fantastic.
Here's a Zhui that's actually showing off.
Oh, beautiful. Wow. Oh,
Um,
what a pretty
yeah,
fish.
and let's see. I showed you the adult Elangatus. Here's some Elangatus fry.
Oh, fun.
Just hatched a couple days ago. I don't know if my camera can focus that close.
It's doing that from a little bit farther away. Yeah, that's perfect. That's much better. Yep.
So that's what they look like.
Wow.
These are like 3 days old. So they just hatch into little miniature
Yeah, look at that.
gobies,
They're ready to go.
which I would call a belly slider if they were Achilles, right? But
Yes, exactly. Huh. How cool.
Yeah. And then let's see what else. These are delicatus young,
Oh,
which are after, they're swimmers when they first hatch, but now these guys have settled and now
right.
they're
Oh,
golden
how
short.
neat.
Yeah.
Ah, what a great
And then
little setup.
these down here are young from that unnamed species I said.
Right.
So these are not the most colorful, but they're definitely the most trouble because the fry had to be moved into brackish water and fed rotifers.
Right. That's what I was just going to ask you. What did you have to do for that intermediate stage? Wow.
And they actually still have to eat kind of a special diet because even though they live in freshwater, they need marine nutrients. So they have to have PUFA enriched foods.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's fascinating.
So I think that's the full tour. The other project that I have going on is this very murky, enormous tank, which exists mostly for the purpose of growing a ton of algae.
Delicious.
That's why I haven't cleared the glass, is because there are
sure.
There are Stiphodons, Stiphodon gobies.
Mm-hmm.
And I could never, in a regular size tank, I could never get my Stiphodons to get properly fattened up, right?
Sure. Yep.
So I decided that I would grow them this vast. This is an 8 foot long tank. So I grew them this. Oh, I shouldn't turn my camera sideways.
Oh, you're fine.
Hold on. So I grew this vast acreage of grazing land for the Stiphodons.
Yes, it's a beautiful field.
and they're doing really well. I have not
Great.
found a single spawn for them. Like every once in a while, they'll hold up in a cave for a while, but I never see eggs.
Dang.
And of course, Stiphodon is another one of those species where the eggs hatch into plankton,
right?
Into ocean going plankton.
So interesting.
So I don't know. I was hoping with a big enough tank and a big enough group that I would get to experiment with their larvae, but so far I don't have any. I don't have a source of larvae yet, so we'll see.
Okay, not yet. All right.
How long? My ambition.
Yeah. How long have you had all of these species going now?
The Rhinogobius I've probably had maybe 4 years, 5 years, something like that.
How cool.
For most of them. The Elangatus, these guys are newer.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
They're newer imports.
How neat.
And these are the only wild caught rhinos I have. I think the others I bought from breeders, so I think they're all F1s.
Got it.
Yeah.
Do you have any other gobies on a wish list?
I mean, I'm always interested, like, okay, there you can see, I don't know if I can zoom on this thing, but there's an Elangatus sitting with its nose poking out of a cave.
Yep, you can definitely see that.
So that guy's probably got eggs in there. Let me see if I can lift that cave up.
Ooh, okay, cool.
Again, I don't know if the camera will focus.
Yeah, you never know.
I mean, I'm always interested in more Rhinogobius species. They seem to be
of course.
Imported very haphazardly. Oh yeah, there are eggs.
Oh.
You can see through the glare.
Yes, yep, just a bit.
Again, I tipped the phone and everything is rotating now, but
no, that's okay. It'll be fine. Oh yeah, I can definitely see them. Oh, how exciting.
Well, they're very.
Hey, what are you doing with salt water over there? No.
They're diligent. They're diligent parents. That male will swim right back onto the eggs.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he'll spend the rest of the day fixing it.
Yeah, gobies are terrible at taking care of their fry, but very good at taking care of their eggs. So it's all about timing. You just have to know exactly when the eggs are going to hatch and then
Got it.
get them
You have to
away.
know when to pull them. Yeah.
Yeah.
How cool.
The saltwater is because the thing about raising the marine goby fry caused me to decide that I wanted to try raising actual marine
Oh,
clownfish fry as well, and that's
how fun.
not going real well. I have like again with the glare.
Hello. Yeah, that's okay. I can still see.
3 little
I
clownfish
see.
fry. There's a 4th one in there that has some kind of thin defect.
Oh, okay.
So proof that it's possible, but certainly not yet a success.
Not yet. We'll get there.
Yeah.
How neat. So I don't know if it works the same way as we do anyway, normally with clownfish, where you pull the eggs sort of the day before that they hatch. Yeah. Is that sort of the tactic with the gobies as well? Okay.
They're not as sensitive as clownfish. So like in fact, the Elengatus eggs, I've had them last like 4 and 5 days after I pulled them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But yeah, ideally you wait until the last possible.
As close as possible. Yeah. Right. Ha. Well, this is great. This is a very cool fish room. Thanks for showing us.
Yeah, you bet.
Awesome. A big thanks again to Andrew for joining us today to tell us about his experiences importing aquarium livestock, as well as showing us that great fish room. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, feel free to check out some of our other videos on the Amazonas YouTube channel and maybe even subscribe. If you would like to receive some of our content in print and don't yet have a subscription to Amazonas Magazine, I would definitely encourage you to check out the website and see if those options might be good for you. You can check that out in the link in the description of this video, or go to www.amazonasmagazine.com. We hope to see you again on our YouTube channel, and have a great day.